Welcome back to Free Motion Basics. Today we are talking all things leaves and plants. Hello, my name is Jenna, and today I'm going to show you 5 different quilting designs that incorporate leaves, plants, vines that you can use on your quilt to help fill up lots and lots of space. The first design we're doing is a leaf meander, and so we're taking the basic meander we learned a while ago and we're just elevating it a little bit to look like a leaf. To start your leaf meander, you're going to start by making a teardrop shape, but you want to make sure to make it look like a leaf where there is a point at the top. Then you are going to bounce back and echo that shape and make it a bigger leaf shape around it, making sure to add your point to your leaf. And then once you have echoed it, you can create your new leafy teardrop shape somewhere else and continue that pattern of echoing and accentuating the roundness at the bottom and then bringing it into a point. Just like while drawing it, we're going to start with a leaf design, bounce back, making sure we got that point, and then travel to our next area. And right here, if you notice, I'm kind of stuck, so my favorite way to travel is I'm just going to echo around this design again. It's okay if some of your leaves have only one echo, if some have 2. For this leafy meander, sometimes I find it easier to do a large curve going out, and then when I'm going in, kind of to do a little S shape. That way is easier for me. You can find out what works for you. Also, what I've noticed is the direction that you start your leaf, so whether you start your leaf on the left or right, sometimes when you bounce back, it will be at a place where it's a little bit harder to move your design around. So just pay attention to that. For example, like right here, I'm starting on my right. And so when I bounce back, I'm going to end on the right, but if I wanted to fill in this space right here, it would make it a little bit more difficult to get there. But if I started on my left, when I bounced back, I would end on my left, and if that was right here, it would make it easier to get to that spot. So this one just takes practice. The next 2 quilting designs are 2 different variations of vines that have leaves on it that you can use like a meander to fill in a large amount of space. For the first variation of these leafy vines, you're going to make a curved line coming up to a point, stop, you're going to backtrack, and then we are going to go around making a leaf-like shape and make sure the beginning and end point of your leaf meet in the right spot. Then you can backtrack a little bit on that curve that you made and make the vine go out in another direction. So then you can add another leaf by going up, backtrack a little bit, then create that new vine. There's a lot of backtracking in this one, and you can either backtrack directly on top of the line, or you can make a little curve just to add some variation to it. I love a nice leafy meander design. It's just so nice. For the leafy vine variation, the hardest part is going to be backtracking and to get your stitches right on top of each other, so go slow. It's okay if your stitches aren't on top of each other all the time, but if your goal is to have veins in your leaf that are right on top of each other, then you want to try to be consistent with that. Then when you backtrack down that vine a little bit, my advice to you is to go slow and to pay attention to where you're going. When I'm doing a leaf shape like this, I like to use a 13 SPI just because I want smaller stitches so that the curves look a little better. One way I like to change this design up a little bit is to change the way the veins look inside the leaves. So instead of bouncing back directly on top of our first stitched line on that vein, make it a little slight echo bounce back, and it just gives a little variation to your design. And so play around with what you like. For the second variation of our leafy vine, you're going to make your leaf like you normally would in the first variation, but then after you make the first leaf, instead of making a second leaf on the opposite side, you're going to make a swirl and backtrack it to make that fun, whimsical shape. Then you can keep going in your vine design, and I like to alternate my leaves and my swirls just so that they're not right next to each other. Again, bouncing back is the hardest part to get your lines perfectly on top of each other, but with practice, it will look great. Also with this design, because of the fun little twirls, it's supposed to look a little bit more whimsical than the first initial leafy vine design. For the little curves, you can switch things up by making the bounce back space in between the curves a little bit smaller, a little bit bigger. You can have them overlap each other to look a little bit more ribbon-like. Whatever you decide to do, just make it consistent. So for my little bounce back twirls, I did a little bit of everything, so it's consistently inconsistent, which is perfect. Our fourth leaf plant vine design is a little bit more complicated. With free motion quilting, drawing it out is the best way to practice. So I made a little workbook that has all of the designs that we are practicing here today. And for the variation of this vine design that we are going to do, I highly recommend drawing it out in the workbook, tracing over it, practicing it then in the blank area before you go in to quilt it. For this design, it is so important to pay attention to the direction that you are quilting. So first, I'm gonna make a little loop, and then every time I bounce back to go to an area or a different area, I wanna make sure to bounce back on top of the line that I drew. That way I can move the design more organically throughout my piece. If I bounce underneath, it's harder to move it around to the right spot. And with each of these new viney shapes, I want to do different sizes, different variations, add fingers at the top of my designs, different lengths, different sizes. Then after I've done a couple of variations of a vine on one side, I will bring my stitch all the way down and then do some leaves and vines on the other side. So you are always going back and forth to separate sides. And then I keep doing that until the design is done. For this design, paying attention to the direction you're going is the most difficult part and takes the most practice. So I'm going to start by doing my first loop, bounce back, create my little vine, and then I'm going to create a second vine that maybe has two little finger leaves, whatever you want to call it, on top. Then I can bring that line all the way down, bounce back up to the opposite side, and continue making those different vine shapes. And I want to make sure they're all organic, and I also want to make sure that every time I do a bounce back, my direction is always going the same way. So for this, I want to go from left to right. So my bounce backs are never going to go to the left. They are always going to go to the right. Right here on this vine, you can see that I started going the wrong way, and I was about to bounce back to the left, and I noticed, oh man, I did this the wrong way. How do I make it look good? And I did not think too quickly on my feet, so I did this weird little claw grabby thing, and you can tell that's where I messed up. And that's okay. If you're doing this vine variation on a large portion of a quilt, know that your first 12 square inches of this design is going to have the most mistakes because you're constantly thinking of which direction do I need to go, where do I need to take this. My best advice is even after drawing it out, do a little practice square in a section, especially if it's a more complicated design like this vine one, and then bring it to your quilt when you feel more confident. Our final free motion design is a version of a feather, but we're going to turn it into a fun little leafy shape. To start our leafy feather, we're going to make a line in the direction that we want our leaves to go, and then I'm going to go back and start at the beginning, and I'm going to make my leaf teardrop shape, but I want it to kind of look more organic like a leaf. So I'm adding some curves at the top, and I want it to bounce back in the same spot on that line. And then I'm going to bounce back twice inside of that leaf shape to make the vein. And then I'm going to go the opposite direction and continue that process. And for this design, I want all of my leaves to look a little bit different so that there's more of an organic nature feel to it. For this leafy feather design, it is super important to know which direction you want your feathers to go. And so I'm going to start with one giant long line that is my center guiding line. And I want to make sure there's enough space in between that I'll have decent sized feathers. You're going to start by making your first leaf design, and you want to make sure that it is curved so that the leaves going around also are curved. So you make your one curved leaf, come bounce up twice to make your veins, and then go to your next leaf. Then, when you go around a smaller curve, you want to make sure that your outside leaves are bigger than your inside leaves. So my inside leaves, I'm kind of forming in a circle, and I'm making them smaller as needed to be able to fit the design and it look pretty organic. For this design, because there's a lot of backtracking and tracing, your centered line, there's going to be a lot of thread on top of it, and it may get a little bit darker. And with this design, because it is a leaf and it's more of an organic, natural shape, it's okay if your backtracks aren't perfect. When you're done, you're going to look at the overall design and think, wow, this design looks so good. I know it's not perfect, but I love the way it brings out X, Y, Z. For me, I love how it's a good frame for some of your quilted pieces. Now that you have 5 new free motion skills in your tool belt, I hope you feel a little bit more confident. And remember, there is a free practice sheet in the description below. It's free to download. Go ahead and print it out and practice your free motion. If you're interested in learning more free motion skills, head to our YouTube channel. Make sure to subscribe. We have a whole playlist of free motion basics. I hope you have a great week, and I'll see you next time.